Well, earlier, Africa's biggest private fixed-income money manager, Future Growth, has revealed plans to stop lending money to 6 of South Africa's largest state-owned companies due to concerns about governance and political interference and so on. And as someone who knows all too well about the bonds game, we're linked to perceptions of the economy and how things are going, is George Herman, who is partner at Citadel Investment Services, joins us from Cape Town in a moment. Before we get into the discussion, Lindsay Williams spoke to the Chief Investment Officer of Future Growth, that's Andrew Cantor, about why Future Growth made this decision.
It was immediate. The decision was taken on Monday. We were in negotiations with 3 SOEs on 3 different loans, and we have immediately communicated to them in the last 2 days about our decision and the reasons therefore. But I think you hit the nail on the head in your preamble, which is that we're investment managers like yourself. The situation changes, we have to change, and that's what we've done here. The remedy, if you will, for lack of a better word, is we are going to proactively engage with these 6 SOEs, and I should say these 6 OSEs for a start, and understand how their governance works. What are our concerns? Our concerns, we're talking about lending agencies like the DBSA or Land Bank or IDC. They make loans. We need to look at how their credit committees are constituted. How independent are their boards? How independent are the credit committees? How many independent non-executives are on those committees? How do they deal with politically exposed persons or loans to politically exposed persons? I realize that's a technical term from the phase legislation, but that's what they are, politically exposed persons, and companies have to be aware of that. We want to get some clarity around the separation between political interference and ongoing operations, appropriate operations of development finance agencies. That's really what this is about. If we can get through that quickly, we will be back lending to these entities as fast as possible. And this is important. I have no desire to reduce funding to agencies who are supporting South Africa's national development. Land Bank, it's land reform, it's agricultural development, it's rural development. That's a terrible thing to pull money from the Land Bank, for example.
Okay, 1.8 billion out of 170 billion, people will say, well, it's just a drop in the ocean, but is the 1.8 billion truly representative of what's going on, or is there something more than that? In other words, the investments you've already made, are they going to be under threat as well?
So we're holding quite a lot of exposure to these entities. If anybody thinks that I'm talking my book, they're wrong. This is not going to be pleasant. If other asset managers follow us, the cost of capital to these entities will rise, and that's not going to help us. 1.8 billion is a big ticket in my life. Andrew's
phone is just going now because everyone's looking for him, but carry on.
Sorry about that. It's a big number in our lives. It's the deals we've been negotiating for the past month only, and take that forward. Plus, we're not going to be rolling over existing debt until we get clarity on these situations. So there it is. It is a number.
Yeah. What reaction have you had, though? Have you had phone calls? Your phone rang earlier while we were on air. Have you had a bit of vitriolic reaction?
Not at all. A couple of tweets that I'm a racist and supporting National Treasury, which I thought was quite funny. But other than that, no. It's been people are receiving it as if it were a political statement, and they're congratulating us. And I'm like, look, I think the only thing that maybe we're bold about is going public with this view. Yeah. It probably have some business consequences, but our view is we must do good business or we must do no business, and that's always been our view.
But nothing from the SOEs themselves?
We spoke to some of the SOEs, of course. We had to advise them, and there the conversations were quite civil. I mean, they understood. I wouldn't say they were over the moon, but they understood what we were asking. They understood we were giving them an invitation to engage with us. And let us be clear, engage with this industry. We're going to be talking, and we are already talking to other asset managers who have similar concerns. So I'm talking here, but I might as well be talking for the industry. And I'm hoping that the industry, through a CISA, will be sending joint letters to the SOE saying, here's what we require as a group of investors. So you don't have to talk to all of us individually and answer 1,000 questions. You can answer a set of questions to one group of investors so you can get it done at once and get clear or not get clear. Because if we don't find independence in these decisions, if we think there's nefarious asset or money allocation going on by the SOEs, we will not give them back the money. It's simple. Yeah. If we can find that they are properly governed with proper independence, proper non-executive directors, etc., happy to resume lending.
Very
I'm assuming the industry will agree with us.
Last question. I know this wasn't the reason for it, but do you secretly, again, I can't say secretly because you're on national television, but do you hope that this sets off a chain of events that changes things in South Africa?
The only thing I would hope for is that other asset managers will be rationally sitting in their credit committees coming to similar conclusions at a similar time, and I think they probably are, and that we work together to get the right answers. And, by the way, the role of a lender to companies is often to be the check on excesses. Your lender, when he makes you a home loan, puts checks on how much debt you can take on your balance sheet against your income. It's part of the role of a lender. And if, to the extent that we assist the SOEs in reviewing how they conduct their businesses, this is, by the way, normal with corporates as well. It's part of ESG work you do with normal corporate loans as well, then we will have served a positive purpose for the long-term sustainability of these entities.
That is Andrew Cantor. This is serious stuff. A major lender pulling out of lending to state-owned companies. An unprecedented statement, that, from a lender like that. We're joined now by George Herman, partner from Citadel Investment. George, welcome to you. What Andrew was saying there on behalf of a single but very big lender, I suppose, is a perception that's being expressed mechanically, as it were, systemically, as it were, by the bond market. Is that right?
That's 100% right, David. You know, typically investors have been hanging their hats on a downgrade from the credit rating agencies and waiting for these specific dates in, first it was December and then June and then December again, whereas a big money manager in the fixed income space, like Future Growth and others, they do their own credit assessment. And kudos to Andrew and his team for actually coming public at a time when they get very worried about their own credit assessment of the SOEs. I think some other credit managers might have been downscaling their purchases of the SOE bonds for a while. But to come public and to state that, I think, is very honorable of them to do. And yes, it is a reflection of the state of the market. Yes.
George, with me is Mark Ingham.
George, it's a very sizable statement that's been made today, and I think also underscores the fact that the governance in these SOEs has been left wanting. And I think a culmination over a number of months and years now is actually coming to a head. I guess, George, and it'd be interesting to get your take on this, whether this could, in fact, extend to the conventional banking sector too.
Well, the first thing that my equity colleague Victor von Reich today said the moment when this news broke was that this is bad for the banks. So yes, that's the one angle of it. The other angle of it is that we have to take a step back and say, well, the function of capital markets is to allocate capital and to price that capital correctly. And what we are finding all around the world is that bond markets are probably incorrectly pricing the risk at the moment due to external factors, quantitative easing, etc. So at a time like this, when a very idiosyncratic set of risks for South Africa comes to the fore, then it is wonderful to see how very quickly the market reacts to that in pricing it. It's kind of interesting that government bonds sold off to the same way, but I imagine that's a sentiment issue. And maybe the foreign investors who've been piling into this market indiscriminately over the last couple of months on the back of the so-called carry trade just got a little bit of a wake-up call. But indeed, you know, as you know, the price gets set at the margin, and today they moved that margin a little bit.
George, coming back to the governance issue, some of the terms that Andrew used there, talk about who they are lending to, and you start discerning a pattern backwards, and you think of the stories about some of the people that were benefiting from these loans, some of the institutions that were, but these are big players. I mean, the ones named include Eskom, Transnet, Sanral, the Land Bank. These are not minor state-owned companies. This is serious stuff.
Well, this is where the big money is. So this is the issue. So the capital market typically funds these big entities more so than all the rats and mice lower down. So this is where their focus must be. So you can imagine that the big lenders, and let's just take now a personality today, because we can talk about Andrew, because just today he was that person. So Andrew sits down on Sunday evening, and on carte blanche, he sees that inset as to how money gets squandered in ridiculous ways inside Eskom, and he's thinking, geez, I put some money in there. Surely that must keep them awake. And so his comments that he made about the assessment by the credit committee at the time was absolutely no surprise.
That is George Herman, partner at Citadel Investment Services. This is a big story, and we're going to see a lot more of it, I suspect, in the next few days and perhaps weeks and months. So goodbye to George. Thanks for joining us.